Hi, Jodi Daniels here, and I'm the founder and CEO of Red Clover Advisors, a certified women's privacy consultancy. I'm a privacy consultant and a certified information privacy professional, and I help provide practical privacy support to overwhelmed companies. And I'm joined by
Hi, I'm Jodi Daniels' husband, Justin here. I am a cybersecurity subject matter expert and business attorney. I am the cyber quarterback, helping clients design and implement cyber plans as well as help them manage and recover from data breaches. I also provide cyber business consulting services to companies as well.
And this episode is brought to you by Red Clover Advisors. We help companies to comply with data privacy laws and establish customer trust so that they can grow and nurture integrity. We work with companies in a variety of fields, including technology, SaaS, media agencies, professional and financial services. In short, we use data privacy to transform the way companies do business. Together, we are creating a future where there is greater trust between companies and consumers. To learn more, visit redcloveradvisors.com. And today, I'm so excited to bring Todd Ruback to the show. Todd was one of my very first privacy friends, and I owe a special appreciation for Todd throughout my entire privacy career. So I'm delighted that he is here. Todd is the director on the U.S. privacy team of Promontory Financial Group, an IBM company, where he oversees privacy consulting teams. Although a lawyer by background, Promontory's privacy consulting practice picks up where the law firms leave off, helping to design and deploy privacy processes and governance for some of the world's largest and most complex organizations. Prior to joining, he was with JPM Chase in their global privacy office, and prior to working with the bank, had been the CPO and general counsel at Evidon, also known for a time as Ghostery, a privacy software company. That's where we met. So Todd, welcome to the show.
Oh, so nice to be here, and thank you for inviting me onto this podcast. I couldn't be happier than to chat with you and talk about all things privacy.
So I got my start in privacy by this little ad targeting world. And then this thing called the Digital Advertising Alliance came along, and I needed a way to have a little icon on my site. And I found this company called Evidon who would help us do that. And so Todd, that's where you and I met really, I think a decade ago, if not more. And
it was, about a decade. Yeah, a long time.
It has been. And so I'd love to hear how you found your way to the privacy field.
So thank you for that question. Look, what year is this? End of 2020. So I've been in privacy for a long time. As you know, you shared in the intro, I'm an attorney by background, but not practicing anymore. But I found my way into the privacy space as a lawyer back in 2004, 2005 timeframe, so early days. And really just, starting to, I was opportunistic. I was in solo practice in the New York City area, New Jersey, New York, and more and more of my clients had data-related questions, really around data use. And what could they do with data? What couldn't they do with data? So really very similar sorts of issues as today. And I ended up really focusing my practice and building it on discrete privacy projects for the financial services industry. So I would parachute in to a financial services organization, help them set up a data breach response program. That was back in the days when data breach laws were just being passed at the state level. Ended up joining a larger law firm. They kind of subsumed my practice. And then in 2012, along came this privacy startup company called Evidon. And it was such an opportunity. Evidon at the time was the first private equity-backed privacy startup. So I joined as employee number 34 as the chief privacy officer and general counsel. Much to my wife's chagrin, she just thought it was an unbelievably risky proposition, but I couldn't have been happier at that startup. We were based in New York City, and we grew to a pretty large organization. And what we did was we helped make that invisible activity happening behind the digital curtain, all the online trackers and cookies and ad tech. We were able to identify it and make it visible and make sense of it, and then help companies comply with different notice and consent requirements for different laws and regulations. And I was there for 5+ years until and shepherded the organization through an acquisition. So we had a nice exit. And now fast forward, here I am at Promontory, which is an IBM company, and I'm a director on the U.S. privacy team. And as I said, or as you shared, we pick up where law firms and lawyers leave off. We help operationalize privacy. So we do privacy. So we help companies think through what their obligations are and design and deploy processes so they can meet their obligations for whatever privacy or security law they need to be concerned about.
Well, thanks for sharing. It's always super interesting and fascinating to hear people's journey. People always seem to come to privacy from so many different angles.
It's a zigzag journey. It's not a direct path at all. It's a lot of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and then make a left turn, up at the end of the road. But it's an amazing industry to be part of.
So Todd, I'm just curious, from your background, you said you were the general counsel and chief privacy officer at Evidon. When did you make that flip from your legal role into this privacy role? I'd love to hear more about that transition.
Yeah, so at Evidon, also a lot of people know it as Ghostery. I was wearing, like any other startup, you wear multiple hats. So chief privacy officer, general counsel, sometimes janitor, and customer service, and all of the above. But after the acquisition, when we had our exit, I took a little bit of time off. After my retention period expired, took some time off, did some consulting, and like anything else, started to get bored. So, went back, was looking for opportunities to get back into the business. And some colleagues asked me to join at JP Morgan Chase, where, and it was a great opportunity. So I joined at the end of right before GDPR became effective, in 2018. And my role as part of the global privacy office was to head up and oversee strategic privacy initiatives for the bank globally. And that was an amazing experience. And when that opportunity was done, I joined Promontory. I knew that I wanted to get back into more of the consultative role, where I'd be client-facing. And really working with organizations to solve very critical privacy-related problems.
Can you share a little bit about some of the types of challenges that you're seeing? I'm sure there's sort of a common theme that you're seeing in companies that they're struggling, trying to figure out how to tackle this, or how do I actually operationalize this?
Yeah, it's interesting. Whereas, 10, 15 years ago, the problems were very specific. Now what I'm seeing is this. Well, let me answer it in 2 parts. What I'm seeing now is more of a globalization of privacy, where we're now deep in the throes of the digital economy, right? And organizations aren't so siloed, you know, by borders. They, you know, most organizations are to be competitive in the digital economy need to, you know, be able to provide their products and services seamlessly across borders, you know, without interruption. And in order to do that, you know, organizations now are really understanding that they have to have a global approach to how they use data, and specifically personal data of their customers and consumers. So whereas, you know, 10 years ago, maybe there were just a handful of data protection or privacy laws that companies were concerned with, now we're really seeing that an organization, to be competitive in the digital economy, has to be thinking about, how do I comply with this emerging family of privacy and data protection laws all around the world? And that's a real challenge. So, you know, the whole complexity and scope of what is privacy has grown exponentially. Let me just kind of hit the pause button and you know, turn it back to you for a moment.
Sure. So on that thought, are you seeing companies have a centralized privacy office with privacy champions throughout? Are you seeing kind of mini privacy offices throughout the company, and then how do they roll up so that there's some coordination? I always hear or receive a lot of questions around the structure to make sure that they're able to stay in line. I think that would be really interesting to hear a little bit about how you're seeing companies try and tackle that challenge, because it's real when you have potentially even competing privacy laws. Which one are you supposed to adhere to?
Yeah, no, really interesting question. And it depends on, you know, the size and complexity of the organization, right? You know, a privacy office, if you will, really should be appropriate to the organization. So, you know, an organization that is 500 people and does 80% of its business in the U.S., you know, it may not need the same level of investment as a large multinational bank. So, you know, for example, that's doing business in, you know, 100 different countries. So it really depends on the company and, you know, its complexity and size and its business. And also, to a large extent, depends on whether it's what industry it's in. If it's a regulated industry or not, will determine whether or not an organization has like embedded privacy leads or champions in every line of business and in multiple countries. So I see it really range across the spectrum, from, you know, the simple approach to this very complex sort of architecture.
So, Todd, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, in a lot of the larger companies that you advise, how do they set up their compliance program with their vendor or sub-processor ecosystem when it may vary dramatically in maturity, from smaller companies who may not read what they sign for contracts to larger organizations that may have very robust plans that may not necessarily jive with what your client expects? How do you deal with that?
No, really great question. Also, like it's really tough. You know, vendor management. You know, third-party vendors or partners. That's a vexing risk area, emerging risk area for a lot of I don't want to say data controllers or a lot of organizations. So really, let me answer it from two perspectives. If you're, you know, the data controller, say a large multinational organization, you know, you may have 10, 15,000 vendors that are providing a service where you need to share information whether it's confidential, proprietary, personal information, whatever the information is. And these and there are now codified statutory regulatory obligations on the data controller when they do share personal information or personal data with its vendors. And some of those obligations, include, just very high level, ensuring that if you share information, that vendor has the same level of security and private data protection that you have, and that you have the ability to audit to ensure that the data you're sharing with them is being protected to a certain level. Likewise, there are emerging privacy laws such as the CCPA out of California, where consumers now have new codified individual rights. And some of those, the right to know what data you have, to access the data, and in some cases, correct it or delete it. And that means, in many cases, an organization will need to reach out to the vendors that they use, that they share personal information with, in order to fulfill their obligation to the California consumer to to find out what information the vendor has. So it really has this flow-through effect or impact on vendors. So that sets up a whole work stream of complexity, around third-party vendor management. Now, if you're a vendor, what we're seeing is, oftentimes a cost of doing business for you is complying with privacy laws. I referenced the CCPA. And that may mean, if you want to do business with large customer, A, they may require that, you are able to demonstrate that you have a privacy compliant, CCPA compliant program in place, which would require a significant material amount of investment of resources and money on your part. So, from the vendor side, I'm seeing more and more it's a cost of doing business. I would love to hear what Red Clover is seeing as well, but it's a real challenge for vendors, but something that they need to really think through and take seriously if they want to stay competitive.
Yeah, well, what we're seeing is, a couple years ago when GDPR first came out, I had the thought that the big companies were taking it seriously, and many smaller companies were wait and see. And I said, well, I think there's going to be a trickle down effect. And once those bigger companies started implementing their vendor management programs, that you'd start to see some of the smaller companies get the updated contracts and DPA requirements. And then those companies would need to start complying. California came along, and from the beginning, they also started, here's my service provider agreement. I need to really dig into what it is that you're doing. And so now almost every week I'm talking to companies, and the phone call is, I got this letter, or they want me to show that we're compliant, or no one's ever asked me before, and we're a small company, but now I got this thing. They want me to sign the 17-page agreement. And I said, well, I bet you the 17 pages, 15 of them were probably the standard contractual clauses. And that takes up a lot of pages. But I'm starting to see more and more from that point of view, where you're seeing that ecosystem really merge. And the companies now the larger companies are trying to figure out what you shared. How do I make sure that all my vendors of all sizes are complying, which is a massive undertaking. And then also the smaller companies are now needing to realize, I can't ignore it anymore. It's here. And if I want, just like you said, if I want to play with big company A, we're going to have to figure out what that means for us. So it's nice to hear that it's dual-sided. Were you going to jump in? You were all excited. Okay. I had a follow-up, which was, from a technology point of view, are you, much of what we've talked about is people, process, understanding the law. How are you seeing companies use technology to try and solve these problems? Because I'll just offer the one thing I do see is I feel like sometimes companies or people think technology will solve it all. And my view is technology is needed, very helpful, big technology fan. You still have to have the people, otherwise you've just set it all up wrong. Or I always say it's just going to be filled with Mickey Mouse because that's all anyone's going to enter. No one else is going to review and know and find the risks in it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree more. People, process, and technology, right? It's a combination of the big three. Just a few short years ago, organizations, at least that I've been dealing with, the larger organizations, could get away with really having a lot of resources doing a lot of manual processes. But the reality is, again, we're in a different place globally, economically, than a few short years ago. We're in a pandemic where most organizations, have remote workforces, and a lot of companies have migrated to cloud platforms where they're sharing data through the cloud platforms with multiple people on disparate systems and applications, and the data is bouncing all over, globally on cloud-based servers. So it's no longer practical for large organizations to have purely manual privacy processes. And we're seeing an absolute explosion in the privacy automation space. Again, I had been the CPO and GC at a privacy software company that was, we had an exit in 2017, I think, so a few years ago. And since then, the sector has grown exponentially. So by way of example, we were our tools at Evidon, they were notice and consent tools for compliance with cookie laws. When at the time that we were acquired, I think there were maybe 5, 6, 7 companies in that space. At last count, there were probably 70 to 75 in just the 3 years since the company was acquired. So that's just one small slice of the privacy sector. So we're seeing huge innovation and investment in technologies that can help organizations automate a lot of processes that are historically manual. And what I also am seeing, and I'm happy to see this trend, is this innovation in technologies is not only for the very large global organizations, but also for the small and mid-sized sectors as well. That can really help, the small to medium-sized companies, comply with disparate privacy laws, so they can be competitive and have an appropriate, privacy compliance program, so they can, continue to, so they can maintain and win the business that we talked about earlier. So I think we'll see that trend, continue to see an expansion of that trend, where tools to help automate a lot of processes will continue to come online and really improve. And just by way of example, we're seeing amazing tools to help organizations discover the data that they have and use on individuals' personal information of where that data is located, and they can help inventory and categorize the data. So when a company So if you're a vendor and one of your clients says, tell me all the personal data you have on Jodi Daniels, boom, a company can run a report, run a scan, run a report, and send all of that information back to their customer. So the customer can comply with a CCPA DSAR request. So, we're seeing that trend emerge, and I think the advent of tools and automation will only help to improve this whole industry.
Well, if you want to get all the information about Jodi Daniels, you just have to go to Facebook.
Ha 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 ha.
I'm a friend of hers.
I know. See,
So
he might not friend you now.
well, that's fine. Speaking of your privacy work, what I was interested in talking a little bit about was a lot of times people will call Jodi and they think they have a privacy question or issue, and it's kind of a security issue. And so a lot of times people get a little bit confused. And I'd love if you could talk a little bit about how often the type of work you do in privacy crosses over with clients' concerns and issues with cybersecurity.
Yeah. So look, just yesterday, I had the 50th conversation with my mother that I'm not a cybersecurity consultant. I'm a privacy consultant, and the two get confused and conflated all the time. But from my perspective, the way I think about it and explain it is they're flip sides to the same coin, right? To the same currency. You can't have security without privacy. You can't have privacy without security. They're intertwined. And really, the simplest way I describe it is security is how you protect information. I think of a castle, right? You've got a drawbridge that you can pull up. You've got a moat. You've got the turrets where the archers, can shoot down their arrows. That's security. But privacy is how you use the information, not how you protect it. How do you collect the information? When you collect someone's information, are you using it the right way, in compliance with the law or in compliance with consumer expectations? Are you using it for the reason that you collected it? Are you providing the right notice? Are you giving consumers or individuals the right choices and to exercise their rights and privacy preferences? So privacy is all about use, retention, and how you use data in the right way, as opposed to security is how you protect it.
Well, Todd, it has been so much fun to go back in time talking about privacy in its early days to more than 70 companies, all about cookie consent. I'm glad I'm not the person having to sort through 70 different cookie consent providers. That in itself is a big, big challenge. So if you could think about, maybe this is a tip you give your mom or others, what might be a privacy tip that you would offer to individuals? What should they do?
Well, if you're an individual, I would say take control of your digital self. There are amazing and free privacy tools out there that an individual has access to really protect your digital identity. If you're a small to mid-sized organization and you need to think about and do privacy, if you will, as a cost of doing business or for whatever reason, look at it and think of it as an opportunity where privacy can become a value proposition to help your organization grow. Companies like Apple should not have a corner on, privacy as a marketing proposition. All companies should be able to use it to have good privacy hygiene to build business, increase their business. And also, a final tip is as you're thinking through your privacy program, do it in digestible chunks. Map out an approach where you have a cogent path towards your objective, and make the appropriate investments that are right for your organization, for its size and complexity, and really take it seriously, and look at it as an ongoing process, because at the end of the day, it'll build trust with your customers, with the regulators, and it will just really enhance your overall business.
So quick follow-up question. What are the names of some of those tools for people to take control of their digital self?
I think you mentioned one earlier in the browser search engine world. DuckDuckGo is a great privacy-centric browser. Brave is another one. My old company, Ghostery, they have a free consumer product, also a product that you can pay for on a monthly basis that it allows you to see all the cookies and other online trackers that may be tracking you when you're on any given website, and you can control that activity. You can block it. Those are just, to name 2 or 3 right away. But the other organizations like Reputation Defender is a great privacy-centric company that can help you manage and monitor your digital self and activity. So those are just 3 or 4, just right off the top of my head.
Well, good. Thank you. We're going to put those in the show notes.
So our last question, we're going to get off the topic of privacy, is, Todd, what do you enjoy doing for fun?
Well, I love riding my bike. I love, and look, I'm kind of a boring guy. I love hanging out with my family, my dog, torturing my son, who's a senior in college. Just really staying close to home, and talking to great people like yourselves. But just as much as I can, enjoying life, and I'm being grateful for everything I have, and waiting for life to get back to normal, which I'm sure will be in the very near future.
Yes, aren't we all? Well, Todd, thank you so much. Where can people stay connected and find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Todd Ruback. Also, you can search on LinkedIn for my employer, Promontory, or Promontory Financial Group, and send me an invite, and I'd love to connect.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. We are glad that you
Thank
were here
you.
with us today.